Welcome to Country Fried Rock, where we have conversations with songwriters for real music lovers who enjoy context and musical connection. We are Country Fried Rock. Welcome to Country Fried Rock. I'm your host, Sloane Spencer. My guest brings Country Fried Rock back to where we started. Might sound a little weird, but the first time that I ever heard Ring of Fire was from Social Distortion. I didn't grow up on country music. I grew up with good old punk rock, and that's what took me back towards American roots music. Well, we're going to bring that all up to speed with Jonny Two Bags of Social Distortion, with a solo record under his real name, Jonny Wickersham. Salvation Town, bringing together California roots rock through his own filter, and lots of special guests as well. We're excited to share our conversation with Jonny Wickersham this week on Country Fried Rock. Country Fried Rock is sponsored in part by Bonnaroo. Get your tickets now on countryfriedrock.org. We caught Jonny Wickersham on his way to Hawaii via a somewhat sketchy cell phone connection. Bear with us. It's a fantastic conversation with the legendary punk rocker. Our very first interview that we did with this radio program was when Steve Soto put out a couple of country EPs.
Oh, yeah. His records are great. He's got one in the can. I just wish he would get it out. Man, he's just definitely one of the most talented people to come from our area. It
was cool when I saw that your record was going to actually happen, because I've been hearing about it for a long time.
That's probably because, well, first of all, we've been working on it for a pretty long time. And second of all, it's actually been finished and mastered for quite some time as well. Like at least probably over a year it's been done, with the exception of the artwork and everything. I mean, the layout and all that stuff for the CD package and stuff. But had the pictures, you know, my friend painted some really cool pictures for the art, and that was all done. And, you know, the record was mastered and everything was ready to go. We just were sort of trying to figure out how we should release it.
You're still working with a couple of different bands, though, as well.
You know, obviously I spend most of my time on the road with Social D, and when I'm home, I play with my first band, the Cadillac Tramp, quite a bit. In fact, tomorrow we're flying over to Hawaii to do a couple of shows, and I'm actually going to play first with a couple guys from the Tramps, and Mitchell Townsend, who's been playing guitar with me, who's played with Chuck Reagan and Matt Costa, and he's just a great friend and a really great guitar player. The four of us are going to open up and play the songs from my album. Cadillac Tramps are going to play. But so Cadillac Tramps are busy, like locally. We don't tour, you know, we haven't done a record in years and years and everything, but it's a lot of fun to see those guys. I really spent some of the best years of my life, like in a van with these dudes, you know.
Yeah.
Soto and I have, and James, who played with Steve on those records, who actually recorded Steve's records and produced them, have a soul band called the Black Diamond Riders. Do Stax, Motown covers, and that's awesome. Great horn section. Oh, Hidalgo and I went over and did a tour with CJ Ramon, doing Ramon songs and songs off CJ's new record. Yeah, staying busy.
Somewhere in there, these songs for the solo record came about. Is that something that you're always doing anyway?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I've always, from the beginning, been always messing around with songs, you know. Like in the Cadillac Tramps, I wrote a few of the songs. Most of our stuff was written by Brian, who was the other guitar player in the band. He really had some very, very prolific years as a songwriter. He had just tons of material for us. At the time, I guess I was still figuring it out, and I wasn't quite that. I really wasn't all that confident with it, you know, for a long time. It was kind of a slow development, but I was really wanted to try to, I guess, express myself. Do the songs, you know, and then I did the Cadillac Tramps for like 9 years, and then I was in Youth Brigade for a couple of years, and we did a record, and I wrote a little bit on that, and then I was in the U.S. Bombs, and that was the first time that I ever really felt I pretty much wrote half of the record that I did with those guys. It was really great. Yeah, it was really they were receptive, and you know, they asked me to play with them. I was kind of forceful about, well, you know, I want to write in this band too. I don't want to just be like the new guy, the second guitarist who gets to contribute a little bit of stuff. I just was really, you know, straight up about it. Yeah, I love you guys and I want to play in the band, but I also want to write just as much as Carrie, the other guitar player. So I was able to submit all kinds of songs, and what we did basically was we locked out a studio for a solid month, and me and Carrie and Wade and Chip, the drummer, we just basically started tracking all these songs. We all had these ideas, and then we'd give these songs to Dwayne to write, you know, lyrics to, and we put, you know, working lyrics in place. So it was cool. That was really my first opportunity to have that much of a creative involvement, with the record. And then Mike was also, when I joined Social D, he was also super receptive to me, contributing to it. Cool. When we were doing Sex, Love, and Rock and Roll, at one point he was even thinking about, because I gave him a bunch of material, and he was like, well, it looks like you might be writing half of this record, but it didn't work out that way. It was 3 songs. I'm still really happy, because for years, since John Maurer had contributed a song on one album, and Dennis and Mike co-wrote a lot of the really, really early stuff. Obviously, all these years, Mike's been pretty much the sole writer. Leading to this, 2 of the songs go back all the way to around 2000, right when I joined Social D.
Wow.
The last song on the record was called The Way It Goes, and that was kind of just a hook that I had been messing around with for years, but I never finished the words. And I finished the words in the studio when we were doing this. Yeah, so the early songs are One Foot in the Gutter and Then You Stand Alone were the oldest ones.
Got it.
And then the rest of them were written somewhere in between, 4 or 5 years ago. Or 4 of them were written just as I was starting to record this record.
Country Fried Rock is committed to supporting the musicians, making the music we love. Help them out by buying their music, and help us out at no extra cost by purchasing through the links on our website. We're excited to now be available in both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. Download it for free. Find us on iTunes, Spreaker, Podfeed, Player FM, Blueberry, Stitcher, Gigadial, Digital Podcast, and some great apps including Agogo and Swell. Wherever you listen, you'll find Country Fried Rock. Never miss an episode.
Hey, this is Jonny Two Bags on Country Fried Rock.
For this particular record, how did that work then? I think 2 or 3 of the songs maybe are co-writes with some of your other buddies.
Forlorn Walls and Then You Stand Alone are the 2 tracks that are the old ones. One Foot in the Gutter is about 6 years old or something. But that was the first song we started working on for this.
Ah.
And initially, I just did a different feel. I was going for a completely different thing. It was really more Flying Burrito Brothers kind of vibe when we first started tracking it. And it wasn't happening so much, It really didn't feel super exciting or anything. And then Pete changed up the whole feel with the drum feel, which is the thing at the intro of the song. And he also, at the same time, sort of crafted the bass part, right? And, I just feel like, hey, that drum feel is a real super signature Pete thing. And his involvement completely changed the direction of the song. And I just think, well, yeah, he should be a co-writer on this, Kind of saved it, And then some of the other songs, David wrote, he came up with the chorus idea for Hope Dies Hard. And, I just feel like if somebody contributes an idea that changes a song, for Hope Dies Hard, I had all those verses, wasn't really sure what I was going to do on the chorus yet. And we were talking about something completely unrelated one day. And he responded to something I said by Hope Dies Hard or something. I was like, there it is. That's the chorus for this song. And when you contribute an idea, you kind of got to credit them, I feel,
The album itself involves a lot of different contributions and collaborations. I know that the recording was stretched out in segments. How did that work logistically?
We were really making it up as we went. I had never, obviously, done my own record. So having a bunch of songs that I wrote on an acoustic guitar and didn't have a chance to work up with the band and really wasn't even sure, for the most part, wasn't sure what direction to take with, the songs. Some of them I knew what to do, but like that example I just gave you with the song One Foot in the Gutter, do I go with this kind of a feel? Or, there's always that stages. And, I knew that this record should be like sort of a country rock, Americana type alt country or whatever, you want to call it. That's what it is. And for me, those elements of people that make that kind of music and the elements of stuff, Lucinda, and, I just love that marriage of like sort of a modern feel and almost pop, the vibe of old American music. Guys like Doug Pettibone, that just have this really like lush thing, it's just stuff you can do with tremolo guitar. Just, you know what I mean? And I don't know. It's just a great genre, I guess. So I knew that, and so we were just making it up as we went with each song, and a lot of them would start with me recording to a click track, going in and playing a real simple drum beat on the drum set, which was always there. And then Pete, would come in and replace the drum track that I did, or sometimes we would just start over, but at least there was so I would create like a demo, I guess. But some of the songs he just played the drums and then I ended up replacing everything else, and it was just built that way. So it was definitely not like a group of guys working up the songs in advance and going in and making a record, which I think is why there's such diversity on here, you know, which I'm really happy it ended up that way. But you know how it is. With the band, it would have been more something like, well, the guitars, everything sounds the same across the board on every song. Like the guitar tones would be all fairly similar. You know, the drums, the tracks would all kind of be the same. You know what I mean? Yeah, and then we just decided as things shaped up, like, well, what should we do here? Okay, well, we need a bouzouki on this, so let's call Xander. He lives right down the street. And of course, we got super lucky with some of the players, with all the players, really, I feel, because I think the album has everything to do with the musicians that played on it. You know, I mean, the songs are just the songs, and it could have been a completely different thing without the people that were involved, including the guy who produced it with me, Kalis, you know. So, how about Gabby Moreno? She just got a Latin Grammy. Yeah, very distinctive, right?
It was beautiful. The title of the album is Salvation Town, and I know it's a lyric in at least the first 2 tracks. Where did that come from?
That is actually something that I didn't steal because I asked permission. Steve Soto had a band for years during the time I had the Cadillac Tramps called Joyride, and we played together tons of shows. You know, we toured together. We were all great friends, and they had a song called Salvation Town. Initially, what I wanted to do was not do a solo project, but start a band. Right? So I'm kind of starting to record, you know, already and messing around and thinking about, okay, well, what's this going to be called? Definitely didn't want to go down the solo artist road. I don't know. I just have never felt right about that. You know? To me, it's always just cooler to be in a band. And so I'm starting to think of names. You know, I'm trying to come up with names, and everything's been taken. I mean, no band will ever be fortunate enough to come up with just a simple, cool name like The Pretenders. You know what I mean? It's just I'm sure that explains why a lot of, like, some of the kids have band names that are like a sentence long, because there's no other option, right? I went through the same thing when I was trying to find a name for the label, you know, for the imprint label, for the release. You know, it's like every record label, every name I came up with, I mean, probably like 80 ideas, and they were all record labels. I'm trying to come up with a name, and everything I come up with is used already, and I can't do it. And finally, I didn't come up with it. Well, you know what? There was a band around Huntington Beach, a punk rock band called the Wayward Canes back in the early 80s. And they were also like, it was kind of a crew. Back then, you know, the bands, and then there was their crew or gang, whatever you want to call it. And I was like, the Wayward Canes, man, I'm going to find out. Like, they were my friends. And so I'm going to ask if I can use that for my band. And it's been a long time. I don't think they ever made a record. They played on some shows. There's probably some flyers floating around, but I'll ask them if it's cool, because I knew the guy. I'm really good friends with the guy who actually came up with that. So I called him and I go, Chris, what's up, man? He's like, do it. So check this out. I'm like, okay, cool. That's the name of my band, the Wayward Canes. So like a week later, my friend calls me and goes, dude, and tells me about a friend of ours that's been living in Europe for years. He lived in Prague, and then I think he was in Germany. And he's had bands going over there. He's from our area of OC. And he took the name.
No!
for his band over in Europe. Oh, man, are you serious? I was so bummed, right? I was like, I think I hadn't already, went down and got, did like DBAs or whatever under the name, you know, all that business stuff you got to do to protect the name. And anyways, it was like, okay, man, what a bum out. I was back at square one. So anyway, the next thing is I thought I was probably listening to the Joyride CD one day or something. I go, Salvation Town would be a great band name. Same thing, call him up. Soto, what do you think? He's all, well, talk to Greg. That was his song. Talk to Greg. He was like, yeah, go for it. So that was to be the band. And then the process of the record, you know, continued. It just made more sense eventually to just be a solo guy. Of all the different players on the record, it's like, obviously I couldn't have them as the band. And so I was like, well, I think Salvation Town, since it was already in my head, suits this record really well, you know. And I was already thinking about the cover art ideas. I just went with that. And also, I call the band, when we play as a band, I like to bill it as Jonny 2000 Salvation Town.
Check out our live music partners at linguamusicalive.com. Live events that you can attend near Asheville, North Carolina, as well as their online video series, Lingua Musica Live. Country Fried Rock is committed to helping prevent musician suicide. For the last 2 years, our official charity has been Nucci's Space, a nonprofit organization removing barriers to mental health care for the music community of Athens, Georgia. This model program addresses everything from the need for affordable rehearsal space to loaner gear, as well as direct mental health services and primary care for musicians. We've got a ton of ways you can help them out at countryfriedrock.bandcamp.com. 2 incredible album compilations, baby onesies, check it all out. Get some great music for yourself or for a friend and make a difference.
Hey, this is Johnny Two Bags, and if you want to check out what I got going on, go to my website, johnnytwobags.com. Thank you. Got the song Wayward Canes out of that, though. It's so funny because in the early punk days, everybody would the band would have the name of their band, and everybody had the theme song. Like, everybody had the Shattered Faith, and they had the song Shattered Faith, The Southern California punk band, you got the band name, and then you got the song that goes with it, and a game.
Well, speaking of which, though, I love that one of the very first things you mentioned when we were talking today was art, because I'm all about the visual that goes with music.
Oh, good. You're going to love the cover. My friend drew it. I came to him and I said, dude, I got this idea. I can't draw or paint. I go, can you do this? And so it's like, yeah. And I told him kind of what I wanted, and he took it and just went with it. And it's actually a really cool black and gray ballpoint pen drawing. It's insane. It's really cool. And all that fine detail. And then my friend Alexis colored it. Yeah, because we were kind of going for the vibe of the old Teen Angels magazines, California, like lowrider clubs and stuff. Yeah.
The thing that I don't like from music being digital only is that you lose that visual connection. I mean, for me, when I think of my vinyl and my records, I literally think of the album cover. I think of the liner notes. I think of the art that went with it.
It's weird that you say that because that was something that was in my mind the whole time when we were doing the CD package because, we went with the kind of package that is just basically like a gatefold record. And at first I had a lot of ideas for the lyric book. I wanted to have a different image to go with each song and use a whole panel for the image and then another panel next to it for the lyrics. And I realized that to put all that work into it, to have it, people look at it on thumbnails on a computer screen, just kind of bummed me out. So I just opted to go with something much more simple. I definitely thought about in doing the book, it needs to be set up to where if people are only going to see it that way, at least it's simple enough to have some impact. I think it worked out cool. I couldn't be happier with the art. We definitely worked very hard on it as far as, it's simple, and you might not be able to tell that we put as much time into it as we did, but we definitely did. And I'm most excited about the vinyl. We're doing, really high-grade, 180-gram audiophile grade records, and I heard the test pressing. It's mind-blowing how good it sounds. So if you like vinyl, I think you're going to be really happy. It's buttery kind of, and you physically feel it in your chest, and it's not a big low-end kick. It's something else, It's like a reverberation almost.
You can find Country Fried Rock on great radio stations like 91.1 The Globe in Goshen, Indiana. Wildman Steve Radio Network from Auburn, Alabama, around the world. Online from Texas at Root Hog Radio, part of Radio Free Americana. From Mobile, Alabama on the Mod Mobilian Radio Network. Listen in Georgetown, California at KFOK 96.1. From Kodiak, Alaska on KMXT. KSRQ, Grand Forks, Minnesota. KKRN, Round Mountain, California. KDRP, solar-powered radio from Dripping Springs, Texas. WALW, Moulton, Alabama. And other great stations like CJXF, Calgary, Canada.
Hey, this is Johnny Two Bags. My new album, Salvation Town, is out, and you can pick it up through my website, johnnytwobags.com, or at your local record store.
Well, so you mentioned a couple times about playing with these songs live. What is that going to look like for you?
Well, I'd like to play out and tour out as much as possible with a whole band. We've done a bunch of shows with the lineup being Dave Hidalgo on drums, Mitchell on guitar, my friend Jordan Shapiro on pedal steel, Warren from the Cadillac Tramps playing bass, and B3. We've done a bunch of shows like that. We went up to San Francisco and did Hardly Strictly. Oh, and Joel Guzman played with us at that show. Yeah, oh my God. But, the problem is not always going to be possible to do it that way. Logistically, financially, the whole thing. So I probably will have to spend a certain amount of time just by myself, acoustic sets or whatever, and which is a bum out because I think it's much more interesting with the band. I think it's cool if you come around and do an acoustic set of material that people have already been listening to. But to present that initially. Here's the record, but it's just me. Never heard these songs before, and here we go. You know, people can lose interest. And one thing that pops into my head a lot when I'm doing that is John Belushi in Animal House, when the guy's serenading the girl on the steps at that party. I gave my love a cherry. Like when that pops in my head, it just ruins it for me every time. You know, I'm like, oh my God, who's gonna come up and grab my guitar and kabong me with it?
When some of these songs have been around for a really long time, are you trying to keep them as recorded, or are you letting them move on?
Right now, when we play as a band, we just play the record, and we've actually talked about this, you know. And Hidalgo was like, man, let's just do the record right now, and then after we've been doing it, you know, for a while, then let's mess around with the arrangements and do things, because I would love to play in a band where we do that. We love going to see a band where they just sort of take liberties with their own stuff live. Not to become like a big jammy thing or anything, you know, change the ending, or even if it's just accenting or sort of showcasing different elements of the song that were more subtle on the recording. There's just all kinds of things you can do with it, you know.
What other plans do you have for getting these songs out to people?
We're going out to support Chuck Reagan and White Buffalo. I'm excited. Yeah. That's going to be cool. And that's like a solid almost 6 weeks, pretty much the entire U.S. He's really, really cool. Yeah.
And YouTube really has been an amazing thing for some artists to be able to get their music out there.
It really has worked as a vehicle to amazing degrees, I think, with some people. And then, of course, there's the opposite, where it's like, what? You know, it's like, there's so many artists and bands and stuff that I'm so bummed that no one will ever hear, you know? I have years worth of CDs and even back to cassettes of demos of friends of mine, you know, and people that I've encountered that no one ever heard their music, or very few people. So I've got this little idea that I've been messing with that I want to do someday, but I'm not going to talk about it. I'm the worst with social media stuff.
Really?
I was really resistant to it for the longest time. I just didn't want to get involved at all. And then I have the last, I guess, couple of years by now I've been doing it, slowly getting better at it and more comfortable with it. I always feel like I'm like excluding somebody and hurting somebody's feelings, you know, and people ask questions and I don't see it, or, you know, I miss it for some reason, or don't get right back to them. But what I like is Instagram, actually.
I was looking at some of the pictures. You've got a good eye for stuff.
Thanks. There's more time for that, like when I'm on the road, I guess, because there's always some dead time every day. And I'm just busy all the time. But I feel like I can get fairly creative with it, you know, have a good time with it.
So if there was ever a band that maybe people didn't get a chance to hear about that you could take with you on tour, who would that be?
Oh, man. Unfortunately, a lot of them don't exist anymore. They just couldn't keep it going. But there's a band called Lunchbox that goes back to 90s, and it was a band that we played with when I was in Cadillac Tramps all the time. And Ron Emery, the guitarist from TSOL, that was his band after TSOL. And they were fantastic, fronted by, Tim Swanson, kind of a Long Beach band, you know? Mm-hmm. Really, really great band. And they didn't even put out a record. They didn't put anything out, actually. I have all their demos, and they just basically were getting messed around by, I think it was Capitol Records or something, telling them they were going to put their record out and then never doing it and keeping them just waiting, you know, and they were so good. I mean, Tim is a great writer, just a really cool band, you know, really early 90s, but they're like a cool Americana thing. There was elements of other things too, like, you know, he was a big Dinosaur Jr. fan. And I don't know, that would be a cool band to take with for sure. Isn't it weird how things like seem so lame and then they just eventually you just get okay with it? Like there was a time when I would have never been caught dead with a wireless guitar. You know what I mean? Like, are you kidding me? That is the dumbest thing. And eventually it's like, it just makes sense, right? And then it's like in-ear monitors, those are so jive. It'll never happen, you know? And now here we are, we're all on in-ear monitors. Never a problem, you know? It's like, oh my God.
Well, safe travels on the way to Hawaii, and have great shows, and looking forward to getting this record out to people.
Thanks, Sloane. It's great talking to you.
You too as well, Jonny. Be well. Bye-bye. Country Fried Rock, music uncovered. Find our full playlist at countryfriedrock.org. Our Country Fried Rock stinger is from Steve Soto and the Twisted Hearts. Country Fried Rock. Copyright 2013 by Lily Pad Productions. All rights reserved. Country Fried Rock is a partnership with the nonprofit Florence Regional Arts Alliance. Your donations to this program are tax deductible to the extent you are eligible under U.S. law. Country Fried Rock radio programs are distributed to public radio through the Public Radio Exchange, prx.org.
Ever he been helping us some country fried rock.